Hello, everyone. Welcome to our very first SOFA series. My name is Erin Selby. I am the Director of Education and Training for UFCW 832's Training Center, and we're trying something new tonight. So what this is a monthly series where we're going to bring timely topics and hopefully things that you or your family are interested in. It will remain free for everybody. You can join, your family can join, your friends can join. This is the first one, so we might have some technical difficulties, but we'll work through it. We've got some very good technical people standing by who can help us. So let me tell you just a little bit about how this works. If you haven't done a webinar before, it's not quite the same as doing like a Zoom class, which some of our activist members have participated in. In this one, you're not going to see yourself. You don't have the option for that. And you don't have the option to speak as well. And that is just because it can get a little crazy if everybody has their microphones on. So you're going to see me and you're going to see our special guest. Well, you can see her already, but I'll introduce you to her in just a moment. If you have a question, and we do welcome you to give us your ideas, put in your questions. If you look at the very bottom of your screen, there is a little box that says Q&A. If you click on that, you can ask a question and you might get an answer right away from me, or you might get something near the end. So if you do ask a question for our special guest, I'm going to keep track of that, and we'll have a few minutes at the end to answer them. We're not going to get to all the questions, but we'll do our best. So please stay tuned. And if you ask a question and don't hear an answer, you might hear it at the end. And if you don't hear it and you still really, really want to know the answer, I'm going to share with you how you can get in touch with us. Okay. I think that's all of our little housekeeping duties we need to do. So I hope you are sitting on your couch, on your sofa, or somewhere comfortable, and you have a cup of decaf or a cup of tea beside you, a cup of whatever. I'm not going to ask. You're in your own time right now. And let me get to introducing our special guest tonight. Our special guest name is Ela. Ela, I didn't practice saying your last name with you. Is it Partyka? Have I
You
said
got it. You got it. You rocked it.
that's pretty good for it's probably the beginner's luck because it's our first show. Ela is here to talk a little bit about stress and a little bit about how COVID might be affecting it. And that's because I don't know what's going on in your life, but I find it's kind of been up and down for the last little while. Some days I think, yep, I've got it. I'm doing fine. And then other days, yeah, it's just kind of hard to get moving. It's hard to be motivated. And maybe you or somebody else is facing something even a little bit more serious. I mean, I think it's normal for us all to feel a little bit bad at times during COVID, but if you're finding that it's a little bit more difficult, Ela's going to talk to us about that. So why is she talking to us? Well, because she knows what she's talking about. Ela is the program director for the Canadian Mental Health Association for Winnipeg and Manitoba. And she has been working for 20 years in the area of mental health in a variety of capacities. She has an MBA, master's in social work, and is all around prepared to give us some tips, give us some resources. And Ela, I'm going to let you take it away. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, Erin, thank you so much for having me, and welcome everybody. Good evening. I hope you're comfortable and warm and safe today. And I'm going to share my screen so you will be able to see my presentation. I hope you can see it now. So yes, first series, SOFA series for UFCW. I'm very honored to be here to talk to you about this very important topic, mental health. And tomorrow, if you don't know, is Bell Let's Talk. So this is very timely. I think it's very important that we talk about mental health, particularly during this very challenging time. Many of us are experiencing stress, and we'll talk about why that is. But really, the work that I do and the work that CMHA does, we are committed to protecting and promoting everybody's mental health in our communities. And today I want to talk to you about what mental health means, why that is important to every single one of us, and how to protect it and promote it, and what you can do to build your resilience. And we'll talk about what resilience is and so on and so forth. And I hope to give you a lot of resources, places that you can reach out to for support and help if you need to. and also, or your family members, of course, like Erin said, and give you some tools to be able to help yourself during this challenging time. So we'll begin by taking a look at what mental health really is and looking at the definition. Oftentimes people use the term mental health and mental illness very interchangeably. And as you will learn today is that mental illness is part of the umbrella of mental health, and it's a small component of the umbrella. And it's very important that we understand the whole umbrella of mental health. So let's begin by looking at the definition. And I really like this definition. It's by Public Health Agency of Canada. And it really talks about the holistic nature of mental health. So it is the capacity of each and all of us to think, feel, and act in ways that enhance our ability to enjoy life and meet challenges, everyday challenges, including challenges like COVID. It is the positive sense of emotional, spiritual well-being that respects the importance of culture, equity, social justice, interconnections, and personal dignity. And so you see from this definition that mental health is not even mentioned, or mental illness, pardon me, is not even mentioned. So it's a very positive and very holistic, like I said, wholesome definition of what mental health is. If you're going to walk away with one thing today, I want you to really understand that mental health is not just absence of illness, it really is a continuum. So this is the mental health continuum model that really demonstrates the fluidity and the dynamic nature of mental health. Any given moment, day, week, month, or year, or decade, you may find yourself and you may find others, whether it's your colleagues, your children, your partners, your brothers, sisters, whoever, along this continuum. So when we're at our best, we feel at our best, we feel well physically and mentally. Our mental health and physical health are very much interconnected. And it's not very difficult for us to find ourselves in a reactive state. So I like to call this and sort of equate it to mental health headache or mental health cold, okay? So just like any given day, you may have headache, tension, upset stomach, or sniffles, you may have a similar sort of mental health condition where you feel a little bit more irritable, maybe a little bit of some sadness or agitation. You may have difficulty sleeping. And why we find ourselves in that situation varies, right? It may be because you are experiencing some challenges in life, or you're concerned or worried about something, or you had a conflict with your loved one. And so you might find yourself preoccupied with those issues and procrastinate meeting your other responsibilities and so on and so forth. So you're just not at your best, not quite yourself. You would be in this reactive state. And of course, the more serious situations in your life, the more intense your response may be, and the more influenced your mental health may be and injured. You may find yourself in an injured state where those symptoms of agitation, anger, or upset emotions may be exacerbated. You may be experiencing physiological symptoms. You may be having disturbed sleeping. Your performance may be different. You may not be interested in interacting with people, and so on and so forth. And of course, as you move along the continuum, you at some point may find yourself ill if you're not able to gain resources and supports to help you move into the green. The important thing about this continuum to remember is that at any point in the stage, or any stage in the continuum, there's actions you can take in order to help yourself and help others move closer to the green again. What that means is that you're never stuck anywhere. even if you are in an ill state, even if somebody's experiencing mental illness, they're truly never stuck there. So that is a good news, right? So we move back and forth any given day, month, week, and year. To complicate this dynamic a little bit, I'm gonna introduce another dimension to this, and it's a dimension of well-being. So you can see that mental illness and mental health is on the horizontal axis here, and on a, horizontal axis. On a vertical axis, you have well-being. So what this really diagram represents and talks about is that by virtue of having mental illness and finding yourself with maximum mental illness doesn't preclude you from experiencing optimal well-being or thriving, okay? Just like, for example, an individual who has a diagnosis of diabetes, it doesn't mean that they're bedbound at home and not able to be productive and engaged in their life. Why is that? It's because they understand what's happening to them. They understand their illness, how to help themselves. They may have social supports and clinical supports to help them manage diabetes. And thus they're able to thrive or experience a sense of well-being. The same is true with mental illness. So just because someone is experiencing depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, or even severe mental illness like schizophrenia, it doesn't mean that they cannot be thriving. And in fact, someone you're working with may have a diagnosis of schizophrenia and you wouldn't even know, or diagnosis of anxiety or depression. If they are understanding of their condition, if they have a treatment plan and have clinicians and social supports and all the internal and external resources to help them thrive and experience well-being. The opposite is true as well. Just because you don't have a diagnosis of mental illness and find yourself in the minimum mental illness end of the continuum, you may not be, in fact, thriving. You may be experiencing minimal well-being, mental well-being, or languishing, or we call languishing. And it means that you're not at your best. You may actually feel dissatisfied with your life. You may lack meaningful relationships and sense of meaning in your life. And you may feel isolated and just unwell. So this is really what mental health is about. It's about that continuum. It's about understanding that all of us are move along those continuums back and forth, depending what happens in our lives, right? And so I also want to underline that being mentally well or healthy doesn't mean being optimistic all the time. In fact, when you're mentally healthy, you have normal variations in mood and emotions. Because certain circumstances ask us and require us to have certain emotions. So for example, if somebody treats you unwell, it's appropriate to feel upset about it, right? That doesn't mean that you're mentally reactive or injured or ill. It just means that a situation has evoked emotions in you. And so that's something that I also want you to remember and understand about mental health and mental health continuum, okay? So we know, and you might have heard these statistics before COVID, 5 in 5 Canadians have mental health, just like we all have physical health. And before COVID, we've talked about 1 in 5 Canadians will experience mental health problems in a given year. And again, when we talk about mental health problems, we don't necessarily talk about the red and the illness. We talk about the orange and yellow, right? Or the continuum. And we also know that by age 40, about 50% of people will have or had mental illness. So just because they had mental illness at some point doesn't mean they will continue to have, okay? But that's a lot of people, right? So a lot of us, we know that are experiencing mental health challenges. We also know that since the onset of COVID, and just a couple of days ago, it was 1-year anniversary of the first case of COVID in Canada, that many of us, almost half of us, or nearly, more than half of us, have experienced decline in our mental health because of the circumstances we are living in and the world is living in. So these are the statistics that I found at the onset of COVID. So I'm going to say about May. It was reported that about 42% of people have reported decline in their mental health due to COVID. People were feeling higher levels of stress, which makes all the sense in the world, right? Because a very novice concept and circumstances in our life. I mean, we were even stressing about toilet paper, right? I know that's a bit of a joke by now, but I think, you know, all of us have had various concerns ranging from employment security, health status of ourselves, of our children, of our parents, and families all around the world, and so on and so forth. We felt anxious and worried about all sorts of things: working frontline, not working at all, losing employment, and many of us have felt emotionally exhausted. I don't know about you, but at the onset of COVID, and when my work started to switch into remote work and doing a lot of Zoom calls and Zoom meetings, the Zoom exhaustion was overwhelming. It took a lot adjustment to really adapt to it, right? And adapt not being out there around people and interacting with others. And of course, you know, many of us have struggled with coping, right? So 14% at that point were saying that they had trouble coping, which makes all the sense in the world, because many of us have coping mechanisms that actually involve social interactions or getting out of the house, recreational activities, going to the gym, going to theater, going to restaurants, right? And with closures and distancing, a lot of our coping mechanisms have been taken away. And so we were left with trying to figure out, how am I going to cope now? What am I going to do with myself? How am I going to manage my emotions? And of course, we cannot be talking about mental health and mental illness without acknowledging the fact that some people lose their lives to mental illness. And we have seen an increase in suicidal thoughts and ideation and death by suicide during this time, which is very much preventable and very much tragic. Okay, so moving forward now, right, 6, 7, 8 months later, CMHA and the University of British Columbia did another research study which showed a greater increase or further increase in and deterioration of mental health of Canadians. And many individuals have expressed that deterioration. And you can see that the deterioration was even greater with people who lost employment during this time, which makes sense, right? If you are worried about your employment status or your financial security, definitely will impact your mental health. People with pre-existing mental health conditions, their mental illness might have been exacerbated. Young people, right? So this is 18 to 24, but I would venture, I guess, that even teenagers have been experiencing an increased deterioration in mental health. And that makes sense too, when you think about that young people really rely on their peers for interactions and socialization and social supports, right? That's just natural stage and developmental stage in their lives. So when that's taken away and school attendance is not the same, part-time jobs are not the same, you can't go out with friends and socialize with them, of course, that's going to impact your mental well-being. Of course, Indigenous people also feel more exacerbated sense of mental health deterioration, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities. And I think that any groups that are disenfranchised or vulnerable in our communities and societies, including elders, which is not on this list, but seniors, I think we can't forget that. People who may be more vulnerable and isolated in our communities will definitely experience a high level of mental health challenges. Okay. So why do we talk about mental health in the workplace? And I'm going to walk you through this slide here. First, I'll invite you to look at the, I guess, your left-hand side. When we think about workplaces, you think about it from a systemic perspective. You as an individual, regardless of your role in the organization, so whether you are a support person, whether you're a manager or a CEO, whoever you are in your organization, you're still an individual employee, okay? And you as an employee interact within a context of a group of colleagues and your department of some sort, right? And that group then functions within the organization and a leadership structure, which then functions in the community and functions in society. Now, each individual employee, again, regardless of their role in the organization, their mental health is impacted by three fundamental variables, one being work environment. Now, traditionally, we thought about mental health as a very private and a private and personal matter. And we know more now that our mental health comes with us wherever we go. On average, we spend 60% of our waking time at work. It would be naive to think that our mental health wouldn't be impacted by and in those situations. So no matter where you are, whether you're at school or whether you're at work or whether you're at home, that environment will impact how you are experiencing yourself and your mental well-being, as will the life circumstances. So of course, the rest of your life, your personal life and your interactions there, and also your internal skills and resources, okay? So work environment has a very, as you see, it's a very fluid and dynamic relationship. The work environment impacts you and you impact the work environment, and you have an opportunity to create an environment that actually protects and promotes mental health of your own and of others. And we'll talk about it right now. So I'll briefly just talk about this as a point of interest, really. In 2016, Canada released first in the world standard for psychological health and safety in the workplace. This is a standard that's been in existence for a few years now. It is a voluntary standard, and it talks about how to prevent psychological harm and how to promote psychological health in the workplace. It's a tool, it's not a rules book, okay? And this tool talks about 13 factors that contribute to creation of an environment that we spend at least 60% of our waking time that contributes to our sense of well-being and mental and psychological health, okay? And so you can see that physical safety, as you see at the bottom there, is is a factor in creating psychological health and safety, as is engagement, as is recognition, as is clear leadership and expectations, and other factors, okay? So your mental health is not only your responsibility, of course, it's our own personal responsibility, but I think the environments within which we function, including our workplaces, also have a responsibility to play a role in protecting and promoting our mental health. So if you are a leader, or if you are on health and safety committee, or if you're passionate and interested in the topic, you can easily download the standard for free. You can contact me, and CMHA has many resources and many educational and training opportunities around the topic to talk about how we can support you and your organization to create a workplace that promotes and protects mental health of every single individual. Why this is important is because mental health challenges and illness cost our economy and our organizations, regardless of what the organization is and the industry, enormous amounts of money. This is pre-COVID statistics, okay? So any given week, 500,000 Canadians don't attend work because of mental health problems. Okay, again, this is not just the red, we're talking about the continuum. So we're talking about 500,000 Canadians call in and say, I'm not coming to work today because they're experiencing mental health challenges. So they're either in a reactive, injured, or ill state. We know that 1 in 3 of workplace disability claims are related to mental illness. That's a lot. And we also know that 70% of the disability costs are contributed to mental illness, okay? And WCB, Manitoba actually, told us or reported to us that these disability claims actually cost 3 times as much. Why, you wonder? There was a number of reasons to that. Number one, oftentimes because of stigma and because people are, have concerns about seeking help for mental health challenges, sometimes don't seek it enough. They're not preventative enough. So by the time they are experiencing illness, they've suffered a lot, and that's a lot of undoing that needs to happen. And recovering from mental health challenges can be a complicated and prolonged recovery. More like a complicated, it's way more complicated than breaking an arm or, let's say some kind of muscle strain. Not to minimize those injuries, they're horrible. Any injuries at work are terrible. Psychological injuries can be much complicated and very painful and take a long time to recover from. So let's go back to talking about mental health in the workplace. So we've talked about, when you are healthy and reactive and injured and ill, what that may look like and what you may be experiencing, what may be seeing in others. In a workplace, you will also see some functional signs that people are struggling, right? So when someone is thriving and is at their best, they're productive, they're engaged, they're there, they want to do new projects, they're very productive, they're usually quite social unless they're introverted, right, and naturally a quiet individual. But generally speaking, they're very keen to get things done and roll up their sleeves, and they're happy to work and be productive. When people are starting to struggle with mental health challenges and are in the reactive or injured state, you may start seeing signs and symptoms where the performance may start to decline, where you may see more absenteeism and presenteeism. So presenteeism is basically people come to work, but they're not productive, right? They don't have the focus. You may see, if you're an industry where safety is very important, or accuracy, that people are making more errors and there may be more accidents and near accidents. You may see that people may be experiencing more sort of social tensions and conflict at work with their colleagues. People may start to withdraw, or they may start looking a little bit more disheveled, although I would warn you against using appearance or how people interact with others very cautiously. Basically, whenever you are looking at this, you need to really know the baseline of the individual. Why is that? It's because some people actually look better when they're struggling because they're trying to cover it up, right? They, in order to sort of not be so obvious that they're struggling, they may put more effort to their physical appearance. And also in terms of sociability, right? If, let's say, an individual is generally quiet and withdrawn, and all of a sudden becomes a social butterfly and is social and, a party animal, as it were, at work. Some people may say, oh my God, isn't this amazing? This person's finally come out of their shell and they're so social and, they're so happy. But in fact, they may be struggling and they may be experiencing mania, which is a mental illness, right? So we need to be very careful about when we are looking at someone and seeing changes in their behavior or appearance or performance. I encourage you more to be curious and wonder, I wonder what's happening for them. I wonder if everything is okay. And this is where I encourage you to take a stance and ask, I've noticed things are different about you. Would you like to talk about it? Is everything okay? And of course, as someone is declining further in terms of their mental health, all these signs and symptoms will be much more exacerbated to the point where some people actually can't get out of bed and they are ill. And in not a good way, right? And they need a lot of help to get themselves some help. So this is what you may see in your colleagues and in your bosses, in your employees, in your volunteers, wherever you are at work, you may see, or even in your kids, right? If you see them, their appearance changes, behaviors, and their performance at school, you may start to question or be concerned about or be curious about what is happening for them. We know that COVID-19 not only has had impact on mental health, but also on people's performance. And because mental health and performance is connected, this is not a surprise. So if you are a supervisor at work or a leader at work, it's very important that we take that into consideration, that as much as we like to think that business is as usual, business is not as usual, even though we may be working still, whether it's frontline, right, or remotely from home, people are working under pressure and tension of the stress of COVID. And we'll talk about it a little bit more, but you may be seeing that people are not performing quite as well as usual, okay, or as before COVID. So you may want to talk about and touch base with your teams about, how are things going, and have a meeting that's not about work at all, but in fact, well-being, and how are people coping. And this is particularly important if you are working remotely, to connect with colleagues, connect with your employees, and connect with your bosses, and really touch base and lay your eyes on people, right, via Zoom and so on and so forth. So when they're struggling, and when to support them and help them move through that. So this is very important to remember. And so if people are working, frontline, there's challenges associated with that and lots of fears and anxieties around that. And there's anxieties and challenges about working from home. And especially if you have kids and you homeschooling at the same time and your spouse is at home as well, right? All of a sudden it's a full house, and how are you supposed to function and perform, 8 to 4? It can be a challenge to some people. So I want you to be mindful about that. Okay, so what about this thing, COVID fatigue, okay? We've heard this term, and I wanted to let you know that it's real, and I want to explain to you why it's real, okay? So in order to understand COVID fatigue, we need to understand the stress curve, okay? And stress is really any external demand placed on us. And it could be a simple demand like, I need to get up to feed my kids breakfast, or I need to get up to go to work, or feed my cat, or whatever the demand is, right? And we need demands in order to motivate us to do things, right? Or I need to get up because I'm hungry, so I need to do. So that's the stress. but the stress can vary, right? And so sometimes stress is really little, like simple, like what am I going to eat today, to all the way to how am I going to pay my mortgage, right? Or how am I going to do this job for another 12 hours today? So what COVID has created is a prolonged and intense a level of stress that we all experience, right? We all have our optimal performance level. So that means that the stress level and our ability to meet the stress or the demand is equal and almost effortless, right? But that is the sweet spot. And the sweet spot is really different for all of us. Once the demand exceeds our ability to meet the demand, or the stress is just, for way too long, just even if it's slightly above your ability to meet it, we start to experience fatigue, right? And this is where most of us, or a lot of us, are and have been in the last number of months, right? Just this overwhelming, at the very least, fatigue, sometimes exhaustion, sometimes ill health, sometimes breakdown, and mental illness, right? Because of COVID. That's called de-stress, right? So COVID fatigue is a real thing, and people experience it because of the prolonged and exacerbated level of stress that they're facing, that they're simply are not able to meet the demands of it, okay? So resilience is really our capacity to adapt and recover in a face of adversity like COVID-19. I like to call resilience like our mental health immune system. Just like we have an immune system to our physical health, and diet, exercise, and many other factors contribute to that immune system, so does our mental health and mental body has immune system called resilience. And if you are resilient, it doesn't mean that you are not affected by life's challenges like loss of a loved one or a relationship or job, or health problems or financial problems, or some kind of tragedy or threat or harassment. It basically means that you're able to face it and manage it and adapt in the face of it. So it's not about having pink colored glasses or being optimistic, right? And it's like, I can do this. It basically means, yeah, this is hard, but I know that because I have supports, both external and internal, I'll be okay. I'll manage through it. I'll adapt and adjust, and I will be okay. And so resilience is a skill. It's a skill that we all can learn. And it's very important that we teach our kids resilience, right? And in fact, that's why it's important for kids to make mistakes and, fall and get up again, and so on and so forth, because that's how they develop resilience. And that's how we develop resilience. And really, when we're resilient, and nothing is simple, right, in this world. There's dimensions of resilience. And so, to be resilient means that you are really well-rounded in terms of your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual resilience. When we are resilient, we experience physical stamina, we have energy, we feel good, right? Physically well, rested, and we feel like we go to sleep when we're tired, we get up and we're rested and ready to go again. Emotionally, when we're resilient, we are calm and focused. We are able to control our impulses. We can regulate our emotions. So again, it's not about being optimistic all the time. It's being able to say, okay, well, this situation upset me, but I'm still okay, right? I can manage my emotions, whatever they are, based on the situation you're facing. And you sort of experience a realistic sense of optimism, right? mentally you believe in yourself, you feel like no matter what life brings me, I'll be okay, I'll be able to manage it. You're able to think through things rather than react to things, right? When we're reactive, it's more sort of the primitive part of our brain that is engaged. We are able to stay focused, and we know what we can control and what we can't, right? So we're very rational, I would say, but also emotionally open and fluid. And then, of course, we can't forget our spiritual side, and spirituality manifests itself in different ways for different people. Sometimes it's attached to religion, sometimes it's not. But really, what it means is that we get a sense of connection and meaning in our life in whatever way it is for you. It could be through church, it could be through community involvement, it could be through music, through food, through art, through sports, it could be through many different things. So that is what resilience is. And so resilience, what it does, it really prolongs and it extends this this curve, so we are able to withstand stress for longer at a higher level. So that's what resilience is, and that's why resilience is so important. It allows us to move us from surviving to thriving, right? Surviving is not fun, and many people these days and this year have been in the survival mode, right? Whether they're working or not, because of the challenging situations that we are facing. And we really want to see our communities and our families and our employee groups and colleagues thriving and feeling happy and responsive and motivated and encouraged. And I think many of us are struggling with that. So what can you do to build your strength and resilience, and how can you help others also to do the same, and help your kids and your family members? We need to look at the dimensions of resilience, right? So let's walk through it all. So physically, what I like to recommend is that we go back to the basics. The more stressful the situation, or a day or a week or a month or a year, we need to be very deliberate and diligent about eat, sleep, and exercise, right? And so what I mean by that is making sure that we nurture our bodies the best way we can, right? Balanced meals, if we can, the best way we can do it. Make sure you get enough rest. I don't know about you, but COVID fatigue, sometimes you need to go to bed earlier, and that's okay. Maybe you need more sleep, that's fine. And also moving your body in whatever way that means to you. Not everybody is an athlete and needs to, run 10 kilometers in a day. Take the stairs, dance with your kids, do a little yoga, whatever, take a walk, whatever that means to you. Move your body, because our bodies are meant for movement. And it's been so amazing to have a mild winter, except the last few days, because I've seen a lot of people really enjoy the outdoors, which has been really a blessing to many of us. And I think people who are also, let's say, wheelchair bound or require mobility equipment, it's been much easier with milder weather to get out there and not feel so alone and isolated at home, even if we can't really truly connect. From mental emotional perspective, in order to build and maintain your resilience, we really need to understand mental health. And that's what we're doing today. I introduced the concept of mental health and mental illness and mental health continuum. The continuum also talks about actions you can take in order to move you closer to the green, right? And you need to understand your own mental health. What that means is recognizing, what are your signs and symptoms of stress, right? For me, for example, I start to shrug my shoulders, right? And my neck and my shoulders start to get tight and maybe you get a headache, right? And so that's your cue, say, okay, take a breather, walk away, stretch, move, relax, take some deep breaths, right? Understanding what situations create that tension in your life, right? And how can you not necessarily avoid them, but how can you manage those situations in order to not really, not go further than reactive, right? On that continuum scale. Practicing mindfulness and relaxation really is about self-awareness. So recognizing those signs and symptoms, saying, ooh, I'm getting stressed out, right? I need to take a walk, or I need to relax, take a few breaths to relax, and so on and so forth. And being compassionate to yourself, because we all make errors and we all are hardest at ourselves. And we need to practice that self-forgiveness, right? That even when we don't do something well one day, it means that we have an opportunity to do it better the next day. So in terms of building and strengthening your resilience, those are the things that you can do, and really take time to explore your own internal world and your own mental health triggers, responses, and signs and risks in your life. From social and spiritual perspective, obviously we're social animals, so we all need social connections. And this is really challenged now during COVID and restrictions. And I know that a lot of people have pivoted and found ways and opportunities to connect with people through social media and electronically, and technology allows us to do the same in order to stay healthy and protect ourselves and others from the virus, but also stay connected. Also know who your supports are. Who are the people that you can go to for a laugh? Who is the person that you can go to for a deep, intimate conversation? Who is the person you can call if you need someone to pick up milk for you because you can't get out of home for whatever reason? And understanding that not one person will be everything to you and will be able to do it all for you, but having, a social circles and support that you have contacts with, where you can really ask for those things and connect with them to fulfill those needs that we all have as human beings. And of course, we need to also be very compassionate understanding of others, because we all are experiencing COVID and we're all impacted by it to various degrees for various reasons. But I think it's very important that we have that understanding. And so, if you all of a sudden all are working from home and are all together, and kids are at home and spouses at home, and, that could be a lot of managing of relationships. And so you need to be understanding of the need to connect, and also the need to have your space, right? And how do you create that in order to all stay healthy and well? And of course, we can't forget resources, right? Because if you find yourself in an ill or injured state, or even in a reactive, right? If you're kind of edging into the orange, I encourage you to seek help earlier rather than later. And so know who your employee assistance plan or benefit plan provider is, how to contact them. I'll tell you about CMHA resources because they're amazing and they really serve people across the continuum. And when you do online and community searches, resources, just be mindful that you really reach to good resources, right? Because you can find pretty much anything on internet, and some of it is not good and valuable or reliable information. So I quickly want to tell you about CMHA and our programs and how they can support you, your families, your colleagues, your employees. And then we'll have an opportunity to ask some questions. So if you're going to walk away with one number or email, it's the hub, Service Navigation Hub. This is the first point of contact with CMHA, and it's also a place you can call if you yourself or somebody else is struggling, or anywhere on the continuum and you don't know what to do about it, right? We have calls from parents, even family doctors calling, I have this person, they're homeless, they're experiencing mental health problems, I don't know where to send them, and we are able to support them. We have employers call and say, I have an employee, they're struggling with mental health, I'm trying to support them, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to offer them. Or we have, we have people saying, I don't feel quite right, I think I'm depressed and I don't know what to do about it. And so whatever the question is about mental health or well-being, don't hesitate to call us at this number or email us. So because this number is not 1-800 number, sometimes people who live outside of Winnipeg and don't have long distance plans are concerned about the charges. You can email us and we'll call you back, okay? So that's not an issue. Wherever you are in the province, you can call us because we are CMHA Manitoba branch and Winnipeg branch as well. We're sort of combined. So if you have questions about mental health, that's where you call. You can even show up at 930 Portage. That's our office. We've been open throughout this whole thing. You can walk in. We have masks, and you can see someone on the spot. Bounce Back is another amazing program that we offer. It's free of charge. Most of our services are free of charge. And this is a program for individuals who are experiencing mild to moderate depression or anxiety or any other mental health challenges, and they want to work on it and move themselves closer to the green, right? So looking at the resilience again, looking at themselves, remember about sort of becoming self-aware and also acquiring some coping mechanisms. And this is over the phone service. So you don't even have to leave home, okay? And no matter where you are in the province, you call us 1-800 number, you can register, and you're gonna be connected with a coach and they will support you on a journey to recovery. Well, a Wellbeing Learning Center is currently a virtual learning center. And in our learning center, we offer a wide range of educational training opportunities for individuals in a community. No matter where you are on the continuum, whether you want to learn more about mental health or coping or resilience, or whether you are recovering from mental health challenges, we have something for everybody. And so I encourage you to go on the website and explore that. This is a brand new program, Wealth Central, and it's really designed to help people build and strengthen their resilience, right? So it's a free program. You register online and it's self-directed. So you go at your own pace. And there's reading material and videos and activities that you can do at your own pace. And if that's something that you are interested in strengthening and your resilience or building your resilience, this is an excellent program for you to engage in. We also have other resources at CMHA online. Return to Workplace Psychological Toolkit for heading back to work. This is really a toolkit for anybody who is working during COVID. A lot of information in that PDF is really about what we talked about today. So you can print some out or make it available to your employees. It can be very helpful and has a list of resources in our community as well. So Manitoba and Winnipeg. We have articles around responding to COVID, how to talk to kids, and so on and so forth. And we also have this link right here. Living Works is a not-for-profit organization that we have partnered with, and they are a suicide prevention organization, and they offer a 90-minute online training on how to have conversations, life-saving conversations about suicide. So this is a really amazing program. If you're interested in learning how to talk to people who may be struggling with mental health challenges and maybe experiencing suicidal thoughts, this is training for you. It's about $30. It takes about an hour and a half. You can sort of walk away from it if it becomes too much. It's for sort of regular people. You don't have to be clinician to learn how to have those conversations. And it's a very valuable service and opportunity. And also we have, of course, workplace mental health solutions, which if you're interested, feel free to contact me and I would be more than happy to talk to you about that. And that's all I have for you today. Good timing, hey?
Thank you, Ella. We do have a couple of questions and we have about 5 minutes. So I realize this is the kind of topic that we could probably talk for hours, which for our shop stewards, you might be interested to know that Ella is going to come back as part of our passport program and do a full day, but that's only for our shop stewards. So if we can just try to get to a couple of questions, people had a lot to say, and I know we won't cover it all, and I apologize for that for folks, but here's the first one. How do you approach the topic with a friend or a loved one? And I think that's the hardest thing, is that perhaps it's somebody that you work with, or perhaps it's someone you are friends with, and you kind of think things are not going well. Where do you start?
Yeah, that's a very common question. I think start with curiosity, right? So obviously acknowledge what you've noticed, right? So you may say, Erin, I've noticed you haven't been yourself lately. Is everything okay? Would you like to talk about it? And the thing is that sometimes people say, oh, what do you mean? I'm just fine. I'm just a little bit stressed, right? But even if they respond like that the first time, don't give up. It really, you asking that question and opening the door really communicates to them that you noticed. So that's very important. And that you are open to talking about it. And they may walk away feeling embarrassed to, that somebody noticed, but they also may be relieved and think about it and then maybe come back to you another time. So just because, sometimes people sort of are taking it back and they're embarrassed a little bit either because they have their own internal stigma, or because they've grown up in in an environment where there's stigma around acknowledging that you may be struggling. And many of us, are embarrassed to acknowledge, like, I'm not doing so hot, right?
Not quite there yet, where people are as comfortable as saying, I've got the flu, as I'm kind of
exactly. And so how many times do you go to work and someone says, oh my God, I have a splitting headache today, versus, oh my God, I'm just not doing well today. I had a fight with my teenager and, I'm just so worried about her. People don't have conversations generally like that, right?
I think we have time for maybe one more question. So this one's maybe a little more complicated, but maybe you can give us some simple answers to a complicated question. How do you know the difference between sort of normal ups and downs, normal depression, having a bad time, compared to something more serious that I definitely should get help, but also comparing that to what's kind of COVID normal? Because I think COVID normal might be a little lower than our regular should be.
Yeah. I think if you're questioning if it's normal, it probably isn't. And that's not a bad thing. That just means talk to someone, call Service Navigation Hub. It's clinicians who answer those calls, okay? They're able to help you sort it out. So they'll ask appropriate questions to really understand, how long have you been feeling like that? How intense are those feelings? How badly does it impact you, right? So think about intensity, duration, and frequency, right? Being in the reactive state, in that yellow, it means it lasts a day or two, right? You had a fight and you feel off, okay? But you go back to normal to sort of, you collect yourself. If you're starting to feel things like, it's been a few weeks, and you're just like, coffee doesn't give you more energy, chocolate doesn't, all your coping mechanisms are not working, it's time to talk to someone professional. So call Service Navigation Hub, go to see your doctor, or go to EAP.
Yeah, you don't have to wait until you can't get out of bed. You can ask for help sooner than that.
Right. And so it's the same with, if you're having chest pain, you don't wait to get a heart attack. You sort of say, you go to someone, say, I'm having this ache here, can you tell me if this is normal, right? Because
I think that's really good advice. We are right at the end, so I want to thank you so much for taking part today. I think you gave us a lot of really valuable information. And for some folks, it might be just a sign of like, hey, maybe I need to do a little more or learn a little bit more. So I appreciate your time, Ela. Thank you very, very much for sharing your time with us. And I just want to say to everybody who tuned in for our very first webinar, our very first SOFA series, thank you so much for being here as well. We're going to be doing this every month. You'll see it the last Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock. We'll have a different topic each time. Next month, because February, of course, is Black History Month, we're going to be having folks from the Manitoba Museum talk about Black history in Manitoba, which is something I'm really interested to learn more about. For those of you who are our members, I've got the website up right now, ufcw832.com, if you want some more information or you just want to ask some more questions. We have lots of things for you to look at there. For those of you who are not UFCW members and you've listened to this and thought, hey, I would like to have this kind of thing at my work, maybe I'd like to be unionized, you can also go to our website, ufcw832.com. You click on the box that says join UFCW and we show you how to do that. So Ela, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I hope this was valuable. Don't hesitate to call, email me, or call CMHA. We're more than happy to help you stay healthy, stay safe, and take care of yourselves and each other.
Thank you. And thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night.